Donkey Kong Bananza manages to feel like a spiritual successor to Super Mario Odyssey, while also being something entirely fresh and new for the 3D platformer genre. It's an incredible big new adventure for Nintendo's classic mascot, and I've been having an absolute blast playing through it. It's impressive just how many things this game is doing at once, and I love how it builds off of the structure of Mario Odyssey. So today I'm going to be comparing these two games, not to try and determine which is better, but instead to highlight how the Odyssey formula has evolved into something totally new in Bananza through a handful of changes and refinements. They're very similar in some ways, but extremely different in others. And don't worry, this video won't contain any major spoilers. All of the gameplay shown will be from the first half of the game. Controlling Donkey Kong feels properly heavy and impactful, but I wasn't expecting just how fun and fluid it is on top of that. From turf surfing to spin jumping, playing as DK is almost as much fun as controlling Mario. But it's still very different, and it took me a while to adjust to DK's new style of platforming. With his ability to climb and destroy everything around him, the moment-to-moment gameplay is a lot more chaotic this time around. And there's now a progression system tied to the moveset, where you can unlock new movement options as you collect bananas. This is a pretty big change as it means you don't have access to your full moveset at the start, but I think it works for a few reasons. One of the biggest complaints about Odyssey is the abundance of moons and their lack of importance. Aside from hitting the required number to unlock the next area, they don't serve much of a purpose. Making the bananas in Donkey Kong a more useful collectible that you need in order to upgrade the skill tree helps address that problem. Now it always feels like I'm working towards the next skill point, and finding a bunch of random bananas lying around feels a bit more natural in this new context. In Odyssey, you collected moons with the primary motivation of hitting that next big number and moving on. But now the main collectible isn't connected to the story progression, as you simply make your way to each boss fight or important set piece to advance the plot and move to the next world. This makes collecting everything way more optional, which from one perspective might make it all even more disposable, but it also means you get to choose whether or not you want to spend time exploring and collecting. For players who don't want to aimlessly wander around grabbing bananas, you can simply just move on, no bananas required. But for people who enjoy the collectathon elements, they can spend as long as they want smashing and searching for bananas, gold, and fossils. You're only ever 5 bananas away from getting the chance to unlock something new. This speeds up the pace of gameplay because you're rewarded more often, but it also sort of slows things down because you're not rushing towards a total number anymore. It's a totally different direction than the pacing of past 3D Mario games. But now that we've switched franchises, that part of the discussion isn't as relevant anymore. If you didn't like the way moons worked in Odyssey, it's very likely that you still won't like the Banandium gems. But by connecting them to DK's moveset through the skill tree instead of the story progression, they feel a lot more valuable on an individual level. From the Ask the Developers interviews for Bananza, we know that the destruction elements were the foundational idea for this game that originated from their work on Odyssey, and that's probably the most immediately noticeable difference between the two games. The fact that you can destroy the entire environment totally changes the way the game feels. This will likely end up being its most divisive feature, as smashing your way through everything around you is very different than carefully platforming through a tightly designed area. The captures that give you a different moveset were the main focus of Mario Odyssey, but Bananza splits that focus between the destruction elements and the animal transformations. While the power-ups like the zebra and ostrich are super cool and useful, they aren't as important as the captures were, and I think that's because smashing and destroying are the bigger priorities. A huge part of what made Odyssey so great was its freedom of movement, and now that's been evolved to include the freedom to shape the world itself. While I sometimes find myself missing the more straightforward approach of Odyssey's platforming, I've really enjoyed the huge change of pace that Bananza offers. One of the core things that links these games together in my mind is the flow of platforming and exploration. While the games play very differently in many ways, the pacing of bouncing between finding bananas and completing challenge rooms feels so much like Odyssey. There's always something to do next, and chaining together moves to complete it all as efficiently as possible is what really keeps me hooked. The objectives are fairly simple, but it's the freedom to take shortcuts and go off in different directions that makes it all so consistently enjoyable. Donkey Kong Bananza's layers are larger and more expansive than Odyssey's kingdoms were, but there's less intentional level design since it's all destructible. The sand, wooded, and metro kingdoms had underground areas that were almost like additional layers, but they weren't nearly as big as the main areas of those kingdoms. But now the different layers can all be massive in scale, which makes it feel like a bigger Mario Odyssey without going full open world. And while I've really enjoyed the larger scale, I do also miss the top-tier level design of Odyssey. But I understand why they created these huge areas, as they work well for giant playgrounds for destruction and experimentation. There are multiple different getaway locations to find across each layer, and they act as your home base and offer you a chance to regain your health. Plus there's a built-in music player here as well, and this one goes the extra mile and makes the songs collectibles themselves, which is super cool. Speaking of collectibles, there are so many of them to find in every corner of the world. Using DK's hand slap to scan the landscape and quickly see what's hidden around you creates an endlessly fun loop of discovery, and it gives you a reason to dig down into the ground. Banandium chips and gold can be used to buy items and bananas from the shops, but the fossils are the most interesting collectible. They're similar to the purple coins in Odyssey, as they unlock new outfits for DK and Pauline. But now there are actual stats attached to each one, adding a practical gameplay use to changing your style. This is a great example of how Bananza evolves what Odyssey was doing, as it includes a great mechanic from that game and takes it even further. But I've been intentionally using the word evolve instead of improve, as whether or not this is an improvement is up to personal preference. I can totally understand why someone might prefer the simplicity of Odyssey, as all the extra mechanics of Bananza can feel a bit overwhelming and cluttered at times, especially with some of the later animal transformations that I won't show here. Not everything has evolved in ways that I love, like the boss fights being even shorter and easier than they were in Odyssey. While you have more freedom in how you approach and defeat these bosses, spamming the Kong Bananza is usually the quickest solution. Some of the later fights do get more involved, but I think they're still less engaging than they were in Odyssey. My favorite part of Mario Odyssey is the New Donk City Festival that acts as a huge celebration of Mario's history, and in Bananza it feels like they took that energy and ran with it. Pauline is now your companion, and her friendship with DK is the emotional core of the whole game. That infectious, positive energy of Jump Up Superstar can be found in every one of Pauline's new songs, and music is a huge focus of the game as a whole. Pauline and her singing have been moved to the forefront, and I love how she slowly opens up to DK over the course of the game. Cappy was a great companion as well, but I much prefer Pauline's chats with DK as you fall asleep and dive to the next layer over the tourist pamphlet readings that Cappy would do in between kingdoms. I can't talk too much about Pauline's story without getting into spoilers, but I just love how they took this part of Mario Odyssey and made it even more of a focus. And it feels so natural too, since Pauline is originally a Donkey Kong character after all. And of course there's DK himself, with his fantastic new redesign that allows him to be so much more expressive. It's so great to see him in the spotlight like this, and he still feels like the Donkey Kong that we all know and love despite switching development teams so many times since his debut. I'm fully sold on his new design after playing this game, which is great since the Mario movie left me feeling a little conflicted. The level of polish in DK and Pauline's animations is incredibly impressive, and these two have quickly become one of my favorite gaming duos. Both of these games are terrific, and my intent with this video isn't to say that Bananza is the better game, but I do think it's a solid evolution of the formula that expands on what Odyssey did so well, while also going off in an exciting new direction that I wasn't expecting. Whether or not you enjoy that new direction is up to personal preference. As someone who adored Odyssey, getting a new game that's sort of like a sequel while also feeling completely unique has been so much fun. It feels like an exciting next step for this development team, and I'm sure it'll end up being one of the best games on Switch too. Of course, comparing this game to Odyssey so much is just one way to look at it, as it also deserves to be analyzed on its own as a standalone game. I just thought the Odyssey similarities were really interesting, and I've enjoyed spending so much time thinking about these two fantastic games. It's too early to know which one of these games I like more, and I don't know that I'll ever be able to decide since they're doing such different things. Now I'm going to get back to actually playing it since there's always more bananas to find and things to smash.